Okay. Well, Anita, nice to see you
Nice to see you too. Hi.
after the frustrations of trying to get everything to go live. But okay, so can you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background?
Mhm. So I'm Anita. I'm in my mid 30s. I won't say exactly where. I'm a teacher. I run a tutoring company and I work very, very long hours, but I enjoy it. What else do you want to know? Job occupation. I live in the UK where it's currently
Yeah.
gorgeously sunny, which is very, very unusual for us.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you're not being intimidated by a whole bunch of rain like
Nope.
I hear happens in the UK. So what specifically did you come, were you face like what were your health issues that you were facing before you started working with me?
So I have polycystic ovaries, which means that my periods are always weird and wonderful and in between. But I'd had a year of bleeding continuously, heavily enough that I couldn't go to work. Quite often I was staying home and everything that entails. I was out to the GP about that's our doctors, maybe 3 months in to be told some women have irregular periods. It's like, okay, helpful. So I got to October. So this point it was almost a year, and I knew that the only other option was to take myself into hospital because I've done it before. And the option in hospital is surgery and a hormone implant. Only lasts a few years, and then when you stop, you relapse. So I didn't want to do that, and it was expensive the last time too, because our
Yes,
NHS is
because
struggling. So
you
I
have
so I
to
had to go
pay out of
privately.
pocket.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I was exhausted and ready to try just about anything else, but before going to that. Yeah.
So what were the emotions or thoughts that you had regarding your health and how did it impact,
I felt
well, you've already
stuck.
spoken about how it impacted your life,
Yeah.
but
Well, I felt stuck. I felt that there was this thing happening that I had no control over, that no one seemed able or willing to help with unless I was willing to go privately because I just couldn't seem to access the help otherwise. I knew that if it carried on, it was only going to get really quite serious. There's only so much blood you can lose if you start getting quite sick. And I knew I was already tipping in that direction. I was sleeping every chance that I could get. I could barely remember what I was doing each day. I was just functioning, and my lips were basically blue. Um, so I was exhausted and stuck, which is not a nice position to be in. No.
no. And being an entrepreneur with your own business and
Yeah,
everything.
and knowing I was laying down my students as well at exam time and exam prep, and knowing that I was just about functioning enough to get through the lessons, but not planning them as well as I normally do, or being able to answer the more complicated questions with intelligent answers. Yeah, it,
Right.
it wasn't great. Yeah,
So your health was threatening your career. It
completely.
was threatening so many parts of you.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
yeah. So what made you decide to seek help and eventually choose to work with me for your health goals?
So I knew that I'd had decent responses to some herbal and dietary changes, but they'd always been very, very small responses. Um, and so I knew that there was stuff out there that I just didn't know very much about. I knew that I could respond to them, just I figured I needed someone who knew more about it to walk me through. For example, I'm sure like many other women who've had PCOS, I've tried various types of diets, the low GI diet, this, that, and the other. And they'd, when I wasn't in crisis, things sort of improved to a certain extent. But when they were this bad, I thought, this is the only option I've got. So I was looking around. I saw some good reviews for you. I liked that you're also someone of faith. So I figured your ethics wouldn't, you weren't just going to be trying to flog me some snake oil somewhere. I liked that too. So
Yeah,
that was a big part of it. I wanted someone that I thought I could trust.
great. So how did you find the process of implementing my recommendations in your daily life?
There were a lot more recommendations than I was expecting. Not gonna lie, it was quite a surprise. So I'm someone who loves to read and read and read. So I read and read and read and read. And while I was reading, I was implementing one thing at a time because I kind of wanted to see how I responded to different things. And I was stunned, first of all, by how much evidence there is for all this that's just not widely known. I found myself wishing I'd known as a teenager. But within a week of implementing one or two things, I stopped bleeding. I thought, I gotta admit, at first I thought it's a pure coincidence. It's been a year. It's about time I stopped anyway. Let's see how this goes. But I stayed stopped for a full 28 days, which I've never had before. Then I had my cycle, which was light and what other people describe as being normal. I've never had one of those. 28 days later, same thing, 28. It's been ridiculous. It was about 5-6 months of completely regular, completely normal cycles that I've never experienced in my life before. So it took some habituating, because there were a few things that I needed to do that I didn't know I needed to do. But once I got into the habit of things, it wasn't that big of an impact in terms of, like, it wasn't a big chore at all. It was quite easy to bake them into the normal day-to-day life. And so worth it. My energy came back. I'm rosy again.
You are. Look at your
Hair
cheeks.
and skin and cheeks are just so much better. I've had comments from family members asking how I've made my nails so much nicer. Even when I'm on my period, I don't break out with spots anymore, which was an eye opener if that was even possible. Yeah, it's been wonderful.
Were there any particular strategies or aspects of the program that you found especially helpful or challenging even?
There were some things I needed to do in the evenings, that because I work quite late hours, I was not, and I'm still not good at maintaining them as a habitual thing. But when I do them, they're there. They're just not as frequent. So there were a few things that when I'm tired, I go, oh, I just don't want to have to. But nothing huge or hugely onerous. And that was more me needing to sort out my working hours than anything in the program that you gave me, to be honest. Um, no, most of it was very achievable. There were some things to cut out of my diet, which were surprisingly straightforward. There were some things to include, some teas and some new habits. But no, it was more workable than I was expecting. I was expecting that no matter who I signed up with, there'd be things that I just wouldn't have time to do. And that didn't end up being the case at all. So if I can do it, and I work 14-hour days, often 6 days a week, if I can do it, literally anybody can. Yeah.
So one of the things that a lot of times people think when they're working with a nutritionist, um, is that it's purely just diet. So was
Um,
that the aspect
no,
with working with me?
and no, it wasn't. There were some supplements to take, but not just sort of generic things. They were quite specific to things that I wanted to work on. Um, and it was less eat this specific thing, eat that specific thing, and more be sensible around these 3 or 4 areas. Make more careful choices based on what I needed to do. And so it didn't feel restrictive, which was nice. As I was expecting it to be more restricted, to be honest. But it was quite straightforward, and they're habits that I don't feel like are that hard to keep going. And things like carb cravings, for example, disappeared. So this, the fight that I'm sure a lot of people, when they're feeling a bit hormonal, feel to go, oh, I shouldn't be eating this many carbs, but boy, oh boy, do I want to. It's just not an issue. That was a nice surprise.
So one of the aspects that a lot of people don't realize that when so I work not only with nutrition but lifestyle. And one of the aspects I think people don't realize is how trauma can actually affect um, your life, and how sometimes if you're holding something that's happened to you in the past can actually in your body, it can actually kind of present as a physical
Yeah, I'd
thing as
forgotten about
well.
that side of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before I'd had my first incident, I'd had a really quite serious traumatic life event that I won't go into details on, but
No.
yeah, I had PTSD afterwards, and that was it was very shortly after that I had my first episode. I'd always been irregular prior to that, but it really kicked things off. And I think part of the being ready to seek some support was also that I was ready to process some of those issues too and deal with them too. I think sometimes you do just need some time to be ready to, but
Yes.
it was worth it. Yeah.
Excellent. So other than the aspects you've already spoken about, were there other more significant changes that you noticed in your health after starting the program?
Yes, but it's difficult for me to pinpoint whether it's due to just to the anemia resolving because I was such a mess because of that as well, which didn't help. But energy levels are up, hair, skin, nail growth is all up, carb cravings are down. I'm no longer struggling to just to maintain a weight. I have a history of an eating disorder as well because it's all fun and giggles over here, and it was always quite challenging to maintain a weight, let alone lose anything. But I found with this that without even thinking about it, I can maintain very easily. And losing it when I'm not stupidly busy is starting to happen more sensibly. And I've lost about a stone since April, without making any major changes, which is quite nice.
So what's the conversion between a stone and pounds? Do
So
you
a
know?
stone is 14 pounds. So I've lost just over 14 pounds since April,
Amazing.
without doing much else special.
Without even realizing it too, because you were at a wedding and had to have adjustments the day of.
Yes, I did. So the bridesmaid's dress, which was very, very, beautiful. It was picked up by my sister and all fitted and gorgeously. Yeah, it literally fell off of me the day that I put it on. So on the day of the wedding, so that had to be sewn on to something I had to wear underneath, which was a little embarrassing and meant a lot of the pictures I was slightly more boobage than I would have liked. But it was quite satisfying all the same. Yes.
Yes, and a pleasant surprise, right?
Very, yeah, complete surprise. So I hadn't been on the
Yes.
scales. I've been far too busy with pre-wedding prep and hosting family and trying to get through students and exams, all that kind of thing. It wasn't on the list of my priorities at that point in time. So that was quite pleasant. Yeah.
Excellent. So you spoke about seeing changes within 28 days.
Yeah.
Is that how long you think that that's when you started really noticing changes, or
It's
the
when I think
bleeding
I
you said
accepted the
stopped?
changes had happened. But the bleeding stopped within a few days of starting implementing some suggestions. I say it wasn't really until the first cycle where I thought, okay, there's no denying that now. I've never had that before. Yeah. So it
Right.
was within a few days. It was very, very quick.
Yeah. And you have spoken about how um, the improvements have impacted um, other areas of your life, such as work and family noticing things,
Yeah.
personal activities. Has it given you
I've
an
just
opportunity to implement more things in your life that you didn't have
it
time for, you didn't have the energy for
the
before?
time has been the issue, but I've got a lot more energy than I had before. I'm bouncing around my classrooms now. I'm going out with friends more often. And now my working timetable is starting to come under control. I've booked in to go to some shows and some concerts with friends, and to head out and go swimming more often, and to go to a regular dance class with a friend. And I don't feel daunted by the energy required to do those things. Whereas prior to this, when I was so anemic, just the thought of it, I'd be in bed.
Right. So between your classes and basically any time that you weren't eating or
I was
working,
sleeping.
you were sleeping.
I was taking naps during the day. I was taking naps in the car between students at one point. I really, really was just dragging myself through the working day, and that was as well as having to take some days off work because I was just too tired and too exhausted to do it. That hasn't happened in a while now, which has been wonderful. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm so excited for you.
So am I.
Can you
It feels
share
like
any
I've got my life
spe
back.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Can you share any specific milestones or achievements that you've reached as a result of working with me?
Yes, regular cycles for the first time in my life ever. Like, since I started, I would have maybe one or two a year, and then they would last for ages. That was always the issue. That hasn't been an issue since I started with you, and that was back at Christmas time. So it's just not, it's not a fluke. Yeah, there's a very, very clear line drawn. So much so, I say that I've had a few students who've got similar issues, kind of asking, "What are you doing? How are you doing that?" I've been passing your Facebook details out to a few people, but
Excellent.
people are noticing, and yeah, it can't be pointed to anything else. It really can't. I've
Oh,
lived with this since I was 12, and I'm a lot older than that now. And this is the first time that I felt like I've got a bit of control over how things work and run in my body, which is quite nice.
Now, one of the things that a lot of people are intimidated with in working with a practitioner of any sort when it comes to nutrition is feeling restricted or having, these like very restricted guidelines. Was it like that working with me?
No, it wasn't like that at all. And it was one of the things that I liked because even in the first few meetings, obviously, with someone new, you're still kind of going, oh, we'll see how things go, see how things go. But I liked that because I've always thought that people who do have these super restrictive ideas, and isn't that what a crash diet is? And they've been very, they don't work. They're not safe, most of them. So I kind of had in my head that if it had been like that, I wouldn't have hung around because that seems like a massive red flag waving in the background, And no, it wasn't like that at all. It was sensible suggestions. It was implement these as and how you can. Here's the ideal. Here's what's acceptable. It was there was like having a conversation with someone as opposed to being told, right, here are all the rules of my brand new
Mm.
cult. It wasn't like that at all.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So, looking ahead, what are your future health and wellness goals?
To continue maintaining more control of my body and my health, um, and to keep learning. There's a lot out. I knew there was stuff out there I didn't know, obviously, but there's a lot more out there that I'd like to learn about what we can do to take control of our own health. Because our healthcare systems, they're all struggling, and even with the best intentioned medical staff in the world, the best training in the world, they're not trained for maintaining health. They're trained to fix it and stick a band-aid on it when it goes horribly wrong, and even then you can't always access them. So this is a different approach, and I think it's a much healthier one. So being able to maintain that for as much as possible, yeah, that'd be a goal.
Yeah, when during my training, one of the things that was really enforced was um, we're functional nutrition and lifestyle practitioners are kind of that in between person that can kind of fill in those gaps
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
to to be there because the physicians don't have the opportunity to,
Yeah.
spend that time that
And I think
somebody
they
like
often
me.
don't know this kind of thing either because their whole training is they see patients in crisis
Yes,
after a long waiting list. But they're not trained in what other things people can do to support their own health and improve things themselves before they hit crisis.
right. And they're time limited. Whereas,
Yes, very much so.
yeah. So when it comes to your plans, how are you going to maintain the process you've made? Like, how is that going to continue in your life?
Right now, I don't know. The habits that I'm putting in place are going to be sticking around for life because they just work. I don't ever want to have another year like that again. Um, I guess I'm kind of to see how things go. This is a brand new frontier for me. I've never been in a situation before where this isn't an issue anymore. So I can't say I know exactly what the future holds, but I do know that this this way of looking at health has become my first port of call now, as opposed to when things get that bad. What else can I try? This would be my first port of call.
Excellent, excellent. Do you have any new perspectives or insights on health and nutrition that you've gained from this experience, other than
Yes.
what you've already spoken about?
That there's a lot more out there to learn, and it's yes, there's some nonsense out there too, but so much that works. There's more, I guess, more traditional or older treatments. They work. And sometimes it takes a bit of experimentation to find the right combination, the right dosage for you, but doesn't that make sense? Our bodies are all a bit different. Yeah, so finding out just how much more there is out there that works has been a real learning curve.
Excellent. How do you envision your health journey in the next few years?
I kind of don't want to try to imagine it because if I go if I drop the habits, it won't be brilliant because I know what that looks like. But I haven't ever had a normal setup of my hormones and my gut and general health before, so I can't say I know, but I'm quite looking forward to finding out.
Excellent. What advice would you give to others who might be considering a functional nutrition approach?
Do it. Just go try it, but also read. Um, read, go find out why and how these things work for you. Start to understand it. You'll feel like you have more control, and just that sense itself is worth a lot.
Well, my next question was going to be, how do you feel more empowered and knowledgeable? But you basically have already
I read.
you've already answered it because
Yeah.
you've taken the initiative to look further into things. And I have to say, Anita has come to me a few times and shared information, verifying the things that, and just
Yeah.
adding aspects to the things that I've recommended and implemented, and it's just been excellent,
It's been
refreshing,
fun
and
finding it all out. It's been fun understanding that how well established a lot of this is, and frustrating thinking what a difference it would make if we were raised, especially as women, because our hormones affect our health, I think, a lot more than many men experience it, at least. If we were taught half of this as kids, the difference it would make to our teenage years would be ridiculous.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And not just our health, but our moods. And
Yeah,
sometimes we feel a certain way and we don't know why. And it could even just be as easy as our hormones. And it's, you
absolutely.
know, we could get easily labeled as something, and it's like, I'm fighting something. It's not my fault. Yeah.
100%. I mean, I didn't get my diagnosis of PCOS until I was in 25, 26. And only because I went to the GP, I was like, I think I have this. But as a kid, I was just labeled as that you're just overweight, you're lazy. I was like, no, I'm not. But I'm
Yeah.
really not. I was playing sports and all sorts, but yeah, it was nice. It was nice to get the understanding of that. But even without the diagnoses, a lot of these things, if I'd known about them, that they were simple dietary stuff, would have completely changed the experience of my childhood completely. But hey ho, you live and learn.
Yeah, that's true. So, above all, is there anything else you'd like to share about your experience working with me?
No, just encouragement for people to try it. No matter how skeptical one might be, just try it. If it doesn't work for you, fine. But I challenge anyone to not find something that does improve their quality of life.
Well, Anita, I am super excited that you are seeing so many improvements, and I thank you so much for sharing your
You're welcome.
experience and some personal stuff that you've dealt with, and the positive aspects of what you have seen since working with me. And I just want to thank you again for your time
You're welcome.
and for sharing.
And thank you very much too. Life changing.
Thank you.
Take care.